Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about Later by Stephen King. And this is a hard case crime book. His third, as a matter of fact. I have not read the first two, The Colorado Kid in Joyland. But I grabbed this as soon as I could and read it. It's a very quick read. And it is about Jamie Conklin, who can see and talk to dead people. And the story is told by 22-year-old Jamie. But it covers, what is he, about 6 years old at the beginning, up to his teens. And then a little bit beyond, but the main chunk of the story is in that time span. And so we meet Jamie, and first, the very first thing is a little sort of introduction where he apologizes for saying later so much in the story, but a lot of it is that sort of, I would learn later that this happened, and I wouldn't know about this until later. Which is a fine storytelling device. So we meet Jamie. We learn that he's, as a child, he can see dead people. He can talk to dead people. When he asks dead people a question, they cannot lie to him. And they slowly fade away. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know what happens to them. But over a relatively short period of time, he can no longer hear them speaking. He says he can see their lips moving, but he can't hear them, and then eventually they're just gone. So we're learning about him. We're learning about his mother. She's a single mother, and he has some encounters with dead people. He's a kid. It's freaking him out. His mother... we'll skip some of this. You should just read it for yourself. But there's a point where a detective, and this is in New York City, this detective comes to Jamie and needs him because, well, she needs to talk to a dead bad guy and find something out. And this leads to the main conflict of the story. All right. Have I covered enough? Are you intrigued? Excuse me. Pardon me. Got like a little tickle in my throat. Maybe I'll take a drink. Talk amongst yourselves for just a moment. All right. Let's get back to Later by Stephen King. So right off the bat, obviously there's comparisons between this and The Sixth Sense, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. You have a male character, child, who can see dead people and talk to them. He has a single mother, and one of the first dead people he talks about seeing is when he and his mother are in their car and a bicyclist has been killed in an accident. And if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the earliest ones we see in The Sixth Sense. Haven't seen that movie in a long time. Anyway, so yeah, there are some definitely some Sixth Sense vibes going on. But this is Stephen King's own story. Aside from that, which some people might consider a lot, but it's just connections that I noticed. Coincidences? I don't know. Aside from that, this is absolutely Stephen King's story. It's, as I said, it's being told by Jamie Conklin. I was wondering, I have not read every Stephen King thing there is. I was wondering how often he uses first person. And if I look over here at my Stephen King paperbacks, my vintage, I don't know that any of those that I'm looking at are told in first person. Trying to think of some of the other ones I read. If anybody knows how often or what the best first-person stories are by Stephen King, throw them down in the comments. There is an excerpt from Joyland in here, and that seems to be first-person. That might just be a hard case crime thing. Anyway, it's a bit of a digression. Jamie, the character, obviously tells the story very well, which means Stephen King is writing very well. It moves at a good pace. It's very short. It's just under 250 pages, and I read it very quickly. It's compelling, which has been a bit of a problem for me this year. I've enjoyed what I've been reading, but I just haven't felt that compulsion. But I did feel it while reading this. Love that cover. Always like the hard case crime books covers. It's well written. The characters are interesting. The way Jamie tells the story is interesting. There are bits of the whole thing's technically a flashback because he's telling the story when he's 22, but there are bits where he flashes back to things that happened previous to the part of the story we're reading, being told. But that's fine. It's not overused. There's a couple spots, and this is just me personally. There are a couple things where I think Stephen King added unnecessary juice, for lack of a better term. It could have just been a normal life kind of thing. How do I explain this without giving it away? It could have been a normal life kind of thing, but instead it's something significant. And that happens twice. And it's fine. They're interesting things, but it just kind of hit me like, why did it have to be that way? Why couldn't it just be this simple, normal thing? Why does it have to be this sort of crazy thing? That's just me. I'm just saying. If you've read the book, or if you read it after watching this video, go in the comments, see if you can tell me the two things I'm talking about, and if they hit you that way. So let's see. I know this has been kind of all over the place. I highly recommend it. I gave this 5 out of 5. Those two little things couldn't even put a dent in my enjoyment of this book. The character of Jamie is interesting. I like the voice that he tells the story in. Good old 22-year-old Jamie telling us this story. His mother's an interesting character. His background is interesting. The other characters, the detective, his neighbor, they're interesting characters. And then there's the big chunk that comes from the detective taking Jamie, and that becomes, it's not just a mystery, and it's not, there are terrifying elements to this story. There are sort of very heart-wrenching and touching elements to this story. I got a little misty-eyed during one of the scenes. And it builds, and it culminates, and then it calms down a little bit, and then it builds up again into this crazy ending. So yeah, highly recommended. I think people say, let's see, there's actually no blurbs on the back. I was going to see if anybody, there's blurbs for Stephen King in general. I want to say this is Stephen King at his best. But again, I probably have only read half of his stuff. So I'm not the Stephen King expert, but this definitely shoots up towards the top of my list of favorite Stephen King. I really, really enjoyed this book. The last bunch of things I've read by him, his newer stuff, I've really enjoyed. So, there you go. That's me rambling about Later by Stephen King. Highly recommended. 5 out of 5 stars. It's so good. So good. All right. So If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. If you know the two moments, the two things that I'm talking about, we can talk about those in the comments below. We can talk spoilers, just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to follow me on social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram is EricSmith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And that's it. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.